Is it time to give up on the Rwanda plan?
So the Court of Appeal ruled today that the government's plans to send asylum seekers to Rwanda are unlawful, overturning a previous High Court ruling, and the government now says it's going to appeal to the Supreme Court. What do you think, Amir?
I think if I got this right, that 2 of the 3 judges said it was not safe. That should be enough. And spending more public money on dragging out what seems to be a very unfair policy and ongoing is just a waste of time and money.
Also, by the way, it's not even guaranteed that the court will take up the case, although it's the government that they probably will. It seems like a case that they probably ought to take up, I guess, but they don't have to. They can just say, no, the court's decided, fuck you, we're busy. So, which would also be very funny in a way, less dramatic as well, because they want the headlines. Every time the Daily Mail can come out and say the liberal judges this, the Human Rights Convention that works for the Tories perfectly. Whereas if they just don't get their moment in the sun at the High Court live on TV, because you know that'll be broadcast live, obviously on the BBC News channel and all of that. GB News can fucking soak their pants in jism over it, you know, etc. That's what the Tories want. So it'd be quite funny if the Supreme Court just went, no, we've got actual shit to deal with. You've had your decision. Fuck up.
Waste of time and money, Helen.
So, no, and the government disagrees with the conclusion of the Court of Appeal on this. The High Court last year supported it, was okay with it. The Court of Appeal, no. And as you just said, Fiona, the government plans to seek permission to appeal the latest view on it. But one reason why it's so important actually to do this is because we do need to stop the small boats. We can't...
What does the Rwanda policy do to stop any fucking boats?
It's a deterrent, Kev. That's why the small boats numbers have increased since the policy was announced.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, they've massively gone up. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You're not. I mean, for a start off, it's a non sequitur, but also it doesn't. Even if it weren't a non sequitur, it wouldn't fucking work because it doesn't affect the thing. It doesn't drive numbers down. And can we? People are going on about like will the Labour Party stop sending people to Rwanda if they get elected? No one's been sent to Rwanda. They've been so fantastically unsuccessful with this policy. We've pissed away tens of millions of public money building this place in Rwanda that no one fucking lives in. We could be building houses in Rwanda and like fucking clean water for them and shit. No, we built a detention center that we've sent nobody to. We've chartered planes that have everyone removed from them by legal challenge. Nothing's happened. So we've dragged our name through the mud. We've not removed a single fucking person and wasted tens of millions in the process. Thanks, guys. Brilliant governance.
Maybe secretly, this really was actually a part of the UK's commitment to nation building in Africa. Because the money's been spent already. It's mostly been spent on building housing in Africa, like you said. It's housing that's supposed to be for the asylum seekers.
Yeah, turn it into tenement blocks for the locals. Yeah, fuck it. Okay.
There was apparently they're going to have some of the space was going to be available for like local teachers or whatever, and I'm like, brilliant. Now we're not going to be deporting anybody. We've just spent loads of public money to build new housing for disenfranchised lower class people in Rwanda. Fantastic. We awesome, finally because of the courts in the UK, we finally had an actual commitment towards funding projects for
maybe that's how we could get our fucking maybe that's how we can get our 10 hospitals built. Pretend they're for housing immigrants, get it legally challenged and overturned, and then you can use that building to put MRI machines and shit in. Yeah. We can get our new hospitals by Tory incompetence. Let's go. Thank you, 255AD, for gifting a sub to the wonderfully named Paul Kagame. Much love.
That's the Prime Minister of Rwanda.
I believe so, yes. I presume it's not the Paul Kagame, although if you are, please Roblox. Anyway, thank you, Arizal.
Next time, if you do go to war with the Congo again, make sure this time you don't massacre refugees. That would be a small Chungus move.
That would be a minuscule, microscopic Chungus move.
Have an open borders policy. Last year, 45,000 people.
Who's got an open border policy? Can right-wingers ever define anything? They can't define woke. They can't define social justice. They can't define CRT. They can't define open borders. Because the last time I checked, if you've got checks at the border, it's not an open border.
And the thing is, and the irony about all of this, right, is that you can have a policed border, you can have a draconian asylum system, but you need to be able to get the people who want to seek asylum into the system to be able to seek the claims in the first place, right? If you, it doesn't matter where you are on the scale of how accepting you want your asylum claims to be, right? You could be someone who thinks that we only should be giving asylum in the most vehement of cases. I don't agree with that. I think we should be very lenient with our asylum claims. But it doesn't matter where you lie in this particular debate. If you want to stop the boats, the asylum claims have to be heard and the safe and legal routes have to be open. You need to give them the alternative to break the demand by making sure that people have no desire to be able to use the boats in the first place because they can access via any kind of safe and legal route they want. You get them to the UK, you fund the asylum system, you hear their claims. If they're accepted, they become an official refugee in the UK, and if they don't get it, they get deported back to their country of origin. Where you feel the line should be as to who gets accepted and who gets deported lies, it does not matter. It literally does not matter because they actually need to be here to have their asylum claim heard first, and they can't do that if your whole plan is no claims, no nothing, just go to Rwanda.
Came to the UK in small boats, on the one hand risking their lives as they did so, on the other hand putting huge pressure.
Honestly, she's so tedious. She seems to be putting her own face to sleep. Like, there's just nothing. This person is a waxwork of a British upper class person, I'm sure.
No, putting pressure on the UK. We know that, for instance, it's costing us £6 million a day to house those asylum seekers.
Because you dickheads decided to start putting them in fucking hotels. You created that problem. You did this.
Yeah, and especially they created the bad solution to the problem, and they also created the problem from the beginning because they were the ones who defunded the asylum system through austerity to ensure that there was a long backlog, which meant that they needed to be housed somewhere. Yes. It's another instance of austerity where kicking the can down the road for cost has led to a larger cost in the long run. Like, again, obviously I think New Labour were really fucking draconian with asylum seekers. David Blunkett even had a fucking song and dance with the Sun about it. But at least when they were in power, they funded the asylum system to the point at which the claims could be heard. Actually, we had double the number of asylum cases per year on average during the New Labour years than we've seen in the last 5 years of this Conservative government. When we've had another refugee crisis.
True, but that's
and there was no queue, there was no backlog because all of the asylum claims got heard because it was being funded correctly.
Well, I was about to say that's when we had national infrastructure. Do you remember that when we actually had things that vaguely worked?
We know legal cases costing out of interest. Do you know?
Oh, so something we know actually from one of the latest.
The government's the case is going to the High Court, and the Court of Appeal.
That I don't have the cost for, but one of the reports that just.
Why don't you have that? Aren't you a government minister that's been sent to talk about this on TV? You should have those numbers.
Come out on this is that if we don't do something about this, by the end of 2026, it's going to be costing the country £11 billion a year.
Well, you shouldn't have started it then, should you? Again, you did this. You did this. You're now complaining about the outcome of your policies. Well, resign then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Although, one thing, Kev, though, I'm sure when we get to the person representing the Taxpayers Alliance, I'm sure they will have no qualms with the amount of money being spent flying people to Rwanda and will praise the government's austerity policies that have caused this. I don't think they'll see any pushback from the person who is just so concerned with the waste of taxpayers' money. But they miraculously only really care about the taxpayers' money when the Labour Party is spending it on ensuring that children get fed, and definitely do not care about that when it's the Conservative Party wanting to drown people in the channel.
Are you saying that the Taxpayers Alliance is actually just a far-right front for reactionary bullshit? Because that is actually just true, yes.
I couldn't possibly comment on that.
So that's not sustainable. So we have to do something different. We have to do something to deter people coming in small boats. Now, one thing that we know from international examples and indeed from our experience with the deal that we've done with the Albanian government for Albanians to be returned home if they come here in small boats is if people know they can't stay in the UK if they come here illegally, then it will deter them from coming here. That's such an important part of the policy. And then if we do that, we can do what we know we want to do in this country, which is actually be a place of haven and sanctuary for people who are refugees from war-torn countries, as we've done for people coming from Ukraine, coming from Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, you say that from Afghanistan. That's not really true. There are people who literally helped British forces who can't fucking come here. Thankfully, though, Boris Johnson did sort out his friend's pets that he got out and in the last days of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So that's good.
From Syria, we want to be able to continue to do that.
I mean, 75%,
but we can't do that while people keep coming here.
75% of applicants that come to the UK in small boats and other ways are granted asylum.
Well, but the important thing is...
So not all the people who come in small boats wouldn't get asylum.
Well, no, but the important thing is to make sure that we have the safe routes. And as you'll know, the audience will probably know, we work with the UN.
You don't have safe routes. Yep. Do you think if there were safe routes, they'd take the dangerous route? Do you think they're doing this like a fucking whitewater rafting trip to be an adrenaline rush for them? There's no safe routes, you prick. You're literally the fucking Home Secretary was asked about this in, was it Home Secretary? I forget anyway, was asked in Parliament at the Select Committee, if I'm coming from such and such a place, what's the legal and safe route I could take to get here? And she couldn't come up with one because there isn't one.
Mary, you're shaking your head all the way through.
Absolutely.
Also,
I think that...
I would like to say as well, if this whole, third-party processing thing was a real deterrent, then literally no migrants would ever try and seek refuge in Australia, because they have been incredibly draconian on this stuff for, close to 30 years at this point, where they, actually, and the conditions are I think the conditions in Nauru are probably worse than the theoretical conditions in Rwanda. If we were to deport people to Rwanda, that's how bad this shit is, and there's been loads of exposés on just how terrible, the Nauru detention camp is. Yeah. And people still try. People still try and get there.
Number of suicides, they've had protests where they've literally sewn their lips together. There have been several instances of sexual assault and rape by prison guards. Yeah, it's hell. The Australian government are running a hell system. Yes.
Yeah, and people still try and go there. They still try and go there. So it shows this idea of it being a deterrent. I see no evidence of this.
It's for two reasons I think we should scrap it altogether. The first one being on a moral compass, because I think it's a barbaric system to begin with. There is no such thing as an illegal human being, especially not those who are fleeing war and persecution. But even secondly, I would add to that, even if you just look at it as purely a financial argument, the UK government's own figures show that the taxpayer is paying £169,000 per migrant. That's to send one person to Rwanda. It's going to cost £1.8 billion to deport all of the 11,000 people that have arrived in the UK this year. If the Tories are serious about getting money spent in good places, it would have been an idea over the last decade not...
If you want to spend money in good places, you can subscribe to my channel or to No Justice MTG's channel.
Hey,
boom.
That you can do.
Boom. Lovely stuff. Anyway, she's making a very serious point about austerity or something. So
to keep implementing austerity, not to have COVID contracts going out to Paris or PPE that isn't fit for purpose.
Let me hear a little bit from our audience. There's a woman there in the green dress.
Hello, yes. It is unfortunate that some of the rhetoric coming from this current government is in parallel to what happened in the 1930s. As a child, I couldn't understand how the Nazis came to power, and now I understand it.
Okay, it's spicy. Let's not brush past that. This is a spicy one. I cannot wait to see how the Tory member is going to claim to be a victim in all of this, and how to accuse her of being a Nazi makes you the real Nazi. That's
she might have voted for Jeremy Corbyn. It's an Exeter constituency, in which case she's almost certainly an anti-Semite.
Almost certainly, yes.
A very small percentage of people actually come to this country. They're coming in the boats because we've cut off the legal routes. And I cannot understand why a government which is full of people of colour, some of whom came to this country as a result of the kind...
Yeah, but they're posh rich ones, so they don't care anymore. That ladder has never been pulled up behind them harder, frankly.
And this is where liberals just completely lose out, because they've forgotten how intersectionality works, basically, or the fact their intersectionality just fails to include class, right? Because, of course, every hint of Marxism has been stamped out of British society for many, many years, ever since the fall of the Eastern Bloc.
Yes.
And so they will look at this and go, "What? It's the issue." They can't recognise that there is, of course, a massive class element to this in general, right? So they think if they do the kind of the opposite of what rightoids do, in that they try and group, different races of people together and then try and pigeonhole them whole based on what their race is. Because rightoids do this all the time. And say, we'll try and pigeonhole like black culture. This is incompatible. This is why I have to keep the races apart. And liberals would just say, "Oh no, they have to be on our side because they're an ethnic minority." When really, of course, the fact they're an ethnic minority will contribute to their politics. True. But the other intersections they're part of will also do that, and class is a very big differentiator with these things.
Let's just hear about Labour's policy since we have you here.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer says he also wants to break the people smuggling, stop people coming across in boats because it's so dangerous. What would Labour do instead? Would you let more people in different ways? What's your plan?
Firstly, we have to tackle the criminal gangs. I've met people who have been coming over in boats that have been deliberately half filled with fuel so that they have to turn back to France to pay more money to make an attempt again. We absolutely have to tackle the criminal gangs.
But how do you do that? That's not easy.
Which Labour have a border force plan for. Also, they would clear the backlog. This government is living in backlog Britain, where most asylum claims haven't been dealt with, and people are living in inhumane conditions, women and children in hotels that are not fit for rats. That is what we're looking at. We would also reform...
What about the men? What? I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want women and children living in those conditions, but the men shouldn't either. What? I know she's trying to tug at hamstrings, but
yeah, I mean that's the one thing that's frustrating me about all of this discourse as well. One of the big things from the right wing is I don't see many women and children in those boats, which of course they may be the majority, working age men, right? But there are still some women and children in the boats as well. But even so, can men not be victims of persecution? Can they not be people who want to not be in a war zone, right? This idea that again, it's I would say kind of unironically misandrist, to be honest, right? This idea that, if you're a man in Afghanistan, you should just tough it out against the Taliban rather than becoming a refugee. I mean, really and truly, there's mostly men because they'll come here and get their refugee status, and then once they're in and they've confirmed that they are a refugee, they'll then bring the rest of their family over. That's what usually happens, as far as I'm aware.
Form legal routes, as the lady already mentioned, and stop gangs exploiting people who are fleeing the very, very worst of humanity.
And the man with the glasses there in the green sweater, yes.
It seems to me that it's got to be time to ditch the Rwanda plan, because it's going to cost the government hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money, both, as Mari said, per asylum seeker, and also to legally do the scheme. And the government puts about a lot of this rhetoric that if you don't support the scheme, you want people smugglers to thrive. Yep. But I think we all recognise we don't want people smugglers to thrive. But yet, the Home Secretary not being able to answer at a select committee how a 16-year-old orphan from an East African country fleeing war can get to this country safely and legally. You need to put those things in place.
See, this twink is making a lot of sense, and I appreciate that.
I mean, literally.
Before you deal with the boats issue. Because currently, this is the only option that people have, is to come across on small boats. And the government looks as if it's punishing those in desperate situations.
Yeah. By removing their rights to protection under anti-slavery law.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, because we're very careful how we select our audiences here, and I'm not trying to overstate the importance. This is not a YouGov poll. But what I'm seeing here is that even though we have more people who voted Conservative than for any other single party here, is there anyone here who supports sending people to Rwanda?
Oof.
Good on you.
Yeah, but again, that's not accurate, is it? They're fucking Tory spineless cowards in that audience.
Do you want to respond to that, Helen, and to what you've heard?
Now or after?
No, just do it now. I'll come to you in a moment, if you forgive me.
Yeah, there's a few things to pick up there. I mean,
and I just wonder what you think of...
That's a lovely line. My drain runneth over. True. True.
Of the fact that there's no support in the audience for sending asylum seekers to Rwanda.
Well, I think on that specific point, it's because...
She's in a difficult position there, because her obvious answer would be, why are you lying? There's clearly loads of you who do support this, but that's her voter base. so she can't say that. So she has to like pretend like there aren't liars in the audience who are secretly very racist.
This is a very hard problem to solve.
I just said that. Yeah.
I think most of us feel that we want to be welcoming people and understand that people have made hard and difficult journeys to try and come to the UK before they choose to get into a small boat. And though, yes, they're in France across several safe countries, but we know that they have started out from places where life is very hard. And I went a few years ago to the migrant camp known as the Jungle in Calais. I took a carload of donations, and I went with some other Conservative MPs, and we talked to...
Okay, but just because it's called the Jungle, did you actually hunt these people?
And we virtue signalled really, really hard about how we're not monsters, despite all of our policies telling us the contrary.
I heard those stories directly, but it doesn't mean that it's morally right to continue a situation where we have people risking their lives in small boats and paying people smugglers to do that. We have to do something different to deter that. And I actually haven't heard anything which is a real policy on that from Labour or from the SNP.
We have a 5-point plan.
No,
We're happy to repeat it.
We know, we're working with France. We've got the deal with Albania. We're investing in the
if I was in the audience, right, I would literally have screamed, "Open the legal routes." I would just like, she's just lying. She's literally just lying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was already pointed out by the young twink gentleman, saying literally, your fucking Home Secretary couldn't give us an example of a legal route they could follow.
Yep.
With Thames Water on the brink of collapse, is it time our water companies were taken back into public ownership?
Fuck yes!
Look at this massive applause to which Labour will say, no, we disagree with the public bad.
Yeah. Excuse me, base department. We've got a delivery for you. Boom. Yeah, and exactly the Labour Party will fumble and fuck up an open goal. Brilliant. Thanks.
Yeah.
For me, yes. I'm going to go out on a limb. Yes. I mean, certainly my heart absolutely says that it's time to renationalise the water companies. I mean, Thames, what an absolute mess. I think what's been incredibly shocking is just to understand, as it started to spill out over the months, but then particularly in the last 24 hours with Thames, the incredibly cynical business model that these privatised water companies are operating on. First of all, they're taking our money, right? We give them, we pay our money to the water companies so that we get what we expect is clean water, good sewage treatment, and please clean rivers and clean beaches that we can all swim in and enjoy. And then, so they take that money and then they...
You fool, you imbecile, you don't get any of it.
Borrow extraordinary amounts of money when the interest rates are low, and they give huge dividends to their shareholders with the falling apart of the infrastructure.
Comrade Fernley Whittingstall.
Frankly, shit, if I can say so, that's going into our rivers and arriving on our beaches. And when the proverbial shit hits the fan for them, and they're £10 billion in debt, suddenly they're looking to their shareholders to put money in. The shareholders don't want to do it.
Can I just interject for one moment? Hang on, because we are on iPlayer at 8 o'clock, which is before the watershed. Now, I've got to be honest, I don't know what the rules are on iPlayer, but...
Look, fuck the if you're watching Question Time, you're at the adult table. I'm sorry, that's it. It doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck. I mean, if they're pumping literal shit into the oceans and rivers of the country, and you can't describe that properly as them doing that, then what's the point of having a fucking political debate show?
Well, it's literally, I mean, the situation is so bad, it can only be described by the word shit, right? It being described as effluent or anything like that, that just doesn't cut the mustard as far as the gravitas of the political situation is concerned. The thing is, Nick Ferrari, on the last time this question was brought up on QT, said that all the CEOs should get put in prison, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But I think that the issue is that's a really kind of engaging way of getting people to, it's very kind of, it piques the audience curiosity. It sparks national interest, right? But I don't think it would be very successful in actually preventing it because, there would be some way of being able to kind of feign irresponsibility, whatever it might be. Whereas the real crutch of all of this is a financial penalty. There has to be a financial penalty for this that is beyond a fine that gets factored into your company's pre-year budgets at the start of each financial year, or how much do we expect to get fined, and then how much profit do we make after that. It's got to be more financial consequences than that. And at this point, it has to be, you have to take the nuclear option. Nationalisation, no compensation. You've been pumping shit into the water. You've been fobbing off your own shareholders by taking out debt on low interest rates and getting punished when the interest rate rise. Tough. Yeah. Sorry. You had one responsibility, which was to deliver water to customers. You failed on that. You failed on keeping shit out of the water, and you failed on running the company in a financially responsible manner. I'm sorry, this is not acceptable. We're going to nationalise all the infrastructure. We're going to give you no money for it. It's as simple as that. And then that is what will really and truly stop it from ever happening again. You could keep all of the rest of the system privatised as much as you want. As soon as they know that there's a risk of them getting immediately nationalised with no compensation, they will turn tail and they will change their behaviour like that. Obviously, I think all of them should be nationalised regardless. But just doing it that one time, ironically, would be enough of a warning sign.
Yeah, it would be a shot across the bows for all of those other privatised industries, yes.
I apologise if anyone was offended by that word. After the watershed, feel free.
I apologise a bit if anyone was offended by that. But, I mean, this is a subject that requires strong language because it's an absolute disgrace. And renationalisation would be that's the way this should be done.
I didn't know he was as based as he is. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know anything about this man's politics. He's a chef.
Is he not a Green Party member?
I have no idea. Honestly, I know he cooked things on TV a few times, and that's it. That's all I know about him. And yeah, he seems
activism. In 2021, he joined the Green Party. Tactically voted for the Liberal Democrats in Tiverton and Honiton of all places.
Oh shit, Lib!
But one thing that's being talked about, and one reason that perhaps some of my fellow panelists might give for not doing this, because it's going to be so expensive, is that we need to compensate the shareholders. We do not need to compensate the shareholders. There is...
Based!
Honestly, let's man the barricades with, unironically, Comrade Fernley Whittingstall.
And the revolutionaries in the audience as well. They're all sick of capitalism too. They all think that this whole fiduciary responsibility nonsense is a bunch of bullshit, just as much as we do. They're hearing from Hugh Fernley Whittingstall a hostile takeover of the water industry by the government.
Apparently he went to school with David Cameron. Wow, they diverged. Fuck me. They went very different political routes. Yeah.
Yeah, just hope the company that he has a line of sources and all sorts for. Hopefully they don't go into administration, lest they be nationalised without shareholder compensation either.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I didn't realise that Exeter would be the founding point of the British Revolution, but here we are. Let's go. Yeah. The Grecian Revolution, people. It's happening.
That's a resounding support for literally breaking the golden rule of capitalism by the audience. I mean,
these greedy bastards have been fucking us for ages, and they've literally pumped water into the shit, and you want to give them billions of pounds to stop that? No! No, you can't be trusted. We take the shiny from you, you pricks.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. 100%.
There is legal precedent. Northern Rock is an interesting example of that. But lawyers have been. There is legal precedent.
I think Hugh Fernley Whittingstall watches your stream. I think that's what this is confirmed tonight. You've got a line to the top of the chef industry.
We must have a mutual follow in the form of one of like the anonymous leftoid shit posters on Twitter. He reminded me of
that's also possible.
I think the account is called Malcarks, which is obviously a great name.
Yeah, true.
It says the shareholders have had their shot at this company at making profits out of it. It's failed them. We do not need to compensate them. We shouldn't spend...
I mean, don't forget some of those shareholders. For example, one of them is University Lecturers Pension Fund. So
Don't care. I honestly, I feel really bad for every single university lecturer who's going to see some of their pension go away because of the amount, the potential loss of their entire pension funds accrual of equity upon this particular share that they've invested in. And I'm like, the pension industry also has to learn. They also have to learn about where they put money for their investments, and of course that the value of those investments can go up or down. You do not have de facto right to ever increasing equity on your stock portfolio.
But that's what capitalism is. It promises eternal growth, and it can definitely deliver that in a safe and stable way forever.
But on the question about whether nationalising is the right answer, I would say a clear no. It's not an easy answer. I'm sure Murray will talk about...
No one said it was an easy answer. They said it was the right answer.
Yeah, true. I mean,
I'm not here. You're gone, sorry.
There are hard privatisations and there are easy privatisations. Hard privatisations where you have to spend loads of public money compensating shareholders. And easy answers where you tell the shareholders to take a long walk off a short pier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Talk about this in a moment, but I would think that Scotland is an example of why it's not an easy answer. And one reason is, in Scotland, water is nationalised.
Yes.
You have a huge problem with sewage outflows. Last year in Scotland,
like England, I can assure
19 million litres of sewage was dispersed into Scottish waterways. That's 19,000 Olympic swimming pools worth. And you only monitor...
How many in England? How many swimming pools? You seem to have the stats on this one for some reason. Why? How many fucking billions of swimming pools are you pissing into the water? Any idea on that? Any idea on that, Tory lady? Or do you just know the Scottish numbers? Would the English numbers make you look fucking ridiculous? I imagine. River Thames. This is from, when is this? The 18th of January last year. So 18 months ago, whatever. River Thames, more than 2 billion litres of raw sewage discharged over 2 days.
So was it 19 million in Scotland?
In Scotland.
Just in the Thames alone.
Just in the Thames, yeah. So this is from the BBC.
More.
Yeah,
50 times more than the entirety of a country.
More than 2 billion litres of raw sewage was dumped in the River Thames over 2 days. Thames Water's Mogden wastewater treatment works in Isleworth, West London, discharged more than 400 swimming pools on the 3rd and 4th of October 2020.
It's like, what was that? It was like one borough.
That's one borough, yeah. So 19 million in the whole of Scotland for last year, just the Thames Water. During the whole of 2020, 3.5 billion litres of untreated sewage entered the Thames from that one plant.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm so sick of Conservatives continually using unqualified numbers to make political points as if they are useful at all in the abstract, right? They do the same with the NHS all the time. They'll say, we are pumping record sums into the NHS. Well, of course you are. The population's increased. The currency is devalued. It's inflated over time. What really matters is, as a percentage of GDP, as a percentage of the population, if per capita and not as a percentage of GDP it's not increasing, then you're not increasing the funding, right? The difference between, 145 billion, 146 billion in terms of pounds is completely irrelevant to me unless you tell me how much that is a percentage. Yeah. Also, I would like to point out, just to make it fair and balanced, right? The difference in population density, the difference in the kind of cities that you have in Scotland, these are all different things than the vastly more densely populated England. I get it. Yeah. There's going to be rough comparisons. But let's forget sewage. Let's forget the sewage dumping. Let's forget all of that. And just talk about, the financial implications of this. People in Scotland pay some of the lowest water bills in the UK because they don't have to pay for shareholder profits. They just pay for the infrastructure and everything else gets reinvested. Second of all, right, what's the chance of a random private equity firm from Australia coming into Scottish water, asset stripping it and leaving them with £54 billion worth of debt that they cannot pay off because interest rates have risen? And the chance of that is zero because the public owns it. As simple as that.
Well, that's the problem with privatisation. Eventually you run out of assets to strip.
Do you think this model of ownership has failed?
So I think what we have, I think what we have at the moment is the consequences clearly of a combination of a Victorian infrastructure and the changes to rainfall and housing and things that have...
Why have we still got Victorian infrastructure?
Interesting question, Kevin. Why has there not been any investment to upgrade the infrastructure? It's a fucking mystery, isn't it?
It's
Not
a head
clue.
scratcher.
It's
It's
a real tough one.
Gets the peanuts percolating, that one. Absolutely. It's almost as if we've had, capitalist companies asset stripping rather than actually investing in infrastructure. So we're literally having to rely on Bazalget's fucking sewers still.
And it's worth pointing out why this happens, right? People will say, well, just you have the wrong people in charge. The issue is, of course, because this is in the non-competitive market, right? It's completely, the demand for it is completely inelastic. And also, you can't compete unless you're going to have like multiple different pipes going to each house owned by different companies, right? Unless you're doing this, it's not going to make any sense to because it's not going to be competitive at all. It's a natural monopoly. So if it were under, I'm going to take the capitalists. I'm going to steel man the capitalist argument on this one. If it's a completely different sector where there is competition and you do want to deliver value to the consumer to ensure that your product wins in the competition for market participation, right? If you want to do this, you will want to invest as much as you can in making the product as best as possible to ensure that customers want to buy your product. But that does not happen in the water industry. There is zero reason for them to ever invest because they know they can charge people whatever they want to charge because people can't live without water, right? They know they don't have to compete with anyone else offering a better service because it's completely monopolized. Yep. And they know that they don't have to be there to see the results of the failure of the company if they do asset strip it to the point of complete non-functionality, like in the case of Thames Water. They can leave the government to pick up the pieces because it does not matter to them at all whether or not water gets delivered or not, because they've made the money already.
Got us to the situation. The other thing that's changed is we are monitoring. So when in 2010, when Labour left office, only 7% of outflows were monitored. Nobody really knew very much about the problem. Now, under a Conservative government, 90% of outflows are being monitored.
Okay, fine, that's good, but we know that they're pumping shit into the water, so can you stop them doing that, please?
And by the end of this year, 100% of outflows will be monitored. So we will really be monitoring the problem. Clearly, monitoring is one reason why we know about it. We have legislated to require the water companies to fix this, to invest £56 billion over the next 25 years to fix this.
25 years? 25 years?
When most of the people in that room will be retired and or dead. Brilliant.
And also £56 billion, that's literally the money that Thames Water owe in outstanding debts. That's fixing fuck all.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell. Again, she's the worst. She's one of the least effective communicators. Like, you need someone who can polish a turd, quite literally in this case, I suppose, to try and sell this, and she's got nothing.
No, she really hasn't. I told you she was bad. I told you she was really bad.
She's awful. I've seen her once or twice in Parliament, and you think, wait, it's Parliament, who cares? But no, she is just like this.
Yeah.
She's just a posh girl who should be tending to her pony. And instead, she's like trying to justify monstrous public policy.
Just cosplaying as a politician.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because she's a posh girl. There's no way. If she'd been born on the estate I was born on, she'd be in fucking jail or fucking stabbed to death in a bar or something. Because she's a fucking idiot.
Because I remember you coming on question time before making this point. It's going to take 25 years to fix.
So we know that you can't do it overnight. I believe this, in fact.
But there's a difference between overnight and a quarter of a century. What do you mean? Oh my God.
You're saying 25 years, but we're in a climate emergency. We've got severe drought problems. We've got severe water scarcity issues. In the UK alone, we actually don't have enough water as it is to actually go around. And you're talking about solving a problem in 25 years' time. So not only that...
Yeah, but as long as it's only the poor that don't have water, who cares? Am I right? Poor people can starve to death or not be able to wash or whatever. I mean, they can't afford heating, so they're not going to be able to afford to heat water and bathe. So what difference does it make? Checkmate. Checkmate, pause.
We've then got the pollutants that are going into the river, the pollutants that's going into the sea. They're not only people, as Hugh said, that we rightly swim in, exactly around this area, but they're then flooded. So all of that contaminants is then going back into 1 in 5 buildings. So you're not doing anything. You're saying 25 years. In 28 years, that is the 3 degrees we're going to see in the UK climate change.
Okay, let's hear from the woman behind you. Yeah.
Water's an essential. We need it to live. I don't understand why it's a not-for-profit business.
Yep.
I think the shareholders have made their money. Those dividends, 72.
Again, even like a really bland statement of reality, and the audience are lapping it up.
Yeah, the vanguard of the revolution sitting in front of you.
Keith, I'm begging you, for once in your life, actually listen to the fucking polling on this. Because people don't like living around literal rivers of shite.
Yep.
Please, Keith, give me one reason to ever not despise you. Please.
Let me I'll come back to it in a minute. So, Rosanna, the question is it time the water companies were taken back into public ownership?
Yes.
Labour's not proposing that either, is it?
No,
Labour's not supporting the idea of public ownership.
No, but firstly, on
We're the Labour
Helen's
Party and we
monitoring
stand
point,
for nothing.
Yeah, fucking wankers.
Labour believe in value for money and not punishing the bill payers. And actually, we shouldn't be letting water companies off the hook to walk away with £72 billion in their back pocket while our children are having to literally swim in sewage. So what Labour believe is that we should,
do nothing.
We back Ofwat's call to link pay to performance. So if you're a company that is
managerial neoliberalism, we won't do them. We will managerial neoliberalism better. We'll regulate so fucking hard. You've seen regulation. Well, we'll regulate harder than you've ever seen in your life, and it still won't work.
She heard the clapping from the people for renationalisation, and that response. Honestly, my soul has shriveled up and died.
Yep.
I'm now an empty husk inside. Nothing. I can't feel anything. Which is good, because I'm probably going to get cholera from the fucking river, so that will probably even out over the piece, I imagine. Oh, God almighty.
Quite frankly, sewage in people's rivers, streams and in the sea, the price to fix that should come out of the dividends. It shouldn't come out of the taxpayers' pocket. And I'm just going to finish. I'm going to finish my point. Because we also support Ofwat's
again, and this is the obvious response as well. This is the obvious response from the Tories when the Labour Party go, "Oh, we'll just regulate better." Having the Conservatives say, "Well, we've spoken to the water companies and with the regulator to get them to invest." I'm like, you're proposing the same thing. You're proposing the same thing, except you're going to somehow you're going to do it better, and that's all you're saying.
It's the future. I'm a meme of Jack Johnson and John Jackson. It's the same. They're the same fucking party with a red rosette and a blue rosette, and they can both go and swim in a British river.
Even if let's take it as a given that Labour will manage the regulation better, because they usually do, because they have at least most Labour politicians actually care
marginally,
about
yes, yeah.
There's a marginal difference in how much they care, right? Let's just assume that is correct. Let's think about the actual electoral optics of this, right?
Yeah.
The electoral optics of the current government failing on delivery on this. And you say, we're just going to do the same thing, but magically hope that it's going to do better. No one's going to vote for you. You're not turning anybody's vote around by saying we're going to do the same thing as the government, but better. No one's going to turn to you. People want solutions to dire problems. And looking like the blue team is not going to help your cause at all electorally, even from an objective standpoint.
It's so dumb as well. Again, from the electoral standpoint, the blue team have never been this unpopular since the fucking early 90s, I guess, mid 90s, when they then got swept away by the Labour government in the incoming government in 97. Why would you want to look like the blue team? Everyone fucking hates the blue team. The blue team are despised. I'm surprised there aren't more Tory MPs being spat at in the fucking streets. Honestly, has a man ever lucked out into becoming Prime Minister worse than he is going to?
The water industry is just such an astronomically poor optics game that they've played here. When literally the whole country is absolutely sick of swimming in shit, expensive water bills, and no solutions coming from anybody, and now seeing one of the companies literally collapse. It's obvious that it's failed. You have to be fucking delusional or mendacious to continue with the privatisation failure after what we've seen today. And the fact the Labour right cannot see this is it's delusional. It's completely delusional.
Well, I've got a couple of points to make after that. So, hold on. The first thing is, I spoke recently about a cost of greed crisis, and this is the perfect example of it. Because how is it that we have a company that has been making extortionate profits for years, particularly during a cost of living crisis. And when you're talking about the infrastructure and things, why the hell didn't they invest in having a proper system set up? Instead, they're happy to take all of the profits, hoard them, and then turn to the taxpayer when it all goes, it's up. Respecting the water.
What has happened to the language on this programme tonight?
Just if I could also add, as you touched on at the start, Scotland is the only nation within the UK that has its water in public hands. Now, the reason we do that is because in Scotland, we see water as being a fundamental basic right. It shouldn't be there for anyone else to profit off of.
Now, if that's getting a round of applause in the southwest of England, I'm sorry, there's no fucking excuse other than, as you pointed out, being cucked as fuck to to capital, basically.
I mean, the thing is, we now know this. Right? We now know that this is exactly what they are doing, because they are currently colluding with the CEOs of water companies. We know they're doing it.
And this is where, and I appreciate we're not in Scotland right now, but from a Scottish perspective, this is where things like the Internal Market Act become really dangerous, because devolution allowed us to put water into public hands. The Internal Market Act is creating a back door by which the UK government can come in and do whatever the hell they like.
So, Mary, when you've got the marine...
This is why, on a purely selfish level, I kind of don't want Scotland to leave. Because without people like this in Parliament, it's just going to be the melters. That's all that's going to be left. It's like, and again, the Scottish people deserve their independence. By fuck, they've been screwed by England for centuries. And it's more precisely in the last century, shall we say. And we're continuing to steal their oil and give them nothing back for it. So, yeah, they deserve their independence, etc. But I hope they don't leave. I hope they choose to remain, because without it, England is fucked. And now England doesn't deserve to be saved by the Scots. But I kind of, I'm from here. I need them to save us.
We'll have like 20 based MPs left, and like half of them won't even take their seats.
Conservation Society saying urgent action is needed to tackle Scotland's sewage problem. They would indicate there is a problem there.
I can accept that, but at least there's still water coming out of taps. At least
there is still water coming out of taps for most of England as well.
For going in a swim, it is nowhere near what it is like here. And the levels of sewage that are getting pumped into English waters is disgusting, not just metaphorically, but it's literally.
Situation in Scotland.
There's lots of your hands up. I'm going to come round. I'll just bring Dear in because I left it a long while before.
Yeah, let's focus on the 7 swimming pools in Scotland and not the 400 million swimming pools in England, or whatever. I don't know the exact numbers, but some shit like that.
Yeah.
Fuck, mate, was it 19 million, she said, in Scotland? And in 2020, there were 2 days where they pumped out 2 billion litres into one fucking river. That's one, let alone all of the others and the beaches that are just covered in effluent.
I don't want to do that again.
Oh, no, that's fine. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Northern Ireland also has privatised water, and I don't think they're doing.
2 out of 4.
I don't know about that. I don't think they're doing very well. But Marie, with all the talk of Marie, sorry,
that's okay.
With all the talk of nationalisation and Scotland doing okay,
that was nice. So you don't have to be a dick. You can just, Anyway, having given her some credit for that, for being a pleasant person, she's now going to say, actually, no, fuck it. You should have to drink shit water.
all the time when Scotland, because it was under national ownership, it was really struggling with funds, and you had to look at PFI contracts to do that. So this is always an issue with my mistake, with nationalisation. Funding becomes the biggest issue. So
give Scotland independence, and you have the full powers to do it properly.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said if Scotland had the full financial powers of a normal independent country, we wouldn't be in the situation that you're describing.
Are you saying
Scottish independence is getting claps in fucking Exeter? What is going on?
The case for it has never been so strong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's people saying we want to take back control of our shit. Literally.
We're being,
and people are like, actually, you should. Yeah. No,
current financial arrangement is currently putting shit into your rivers. Would you like to change that, folks? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present to you a shit-filled river.
Well, quite literally, tough shit. Because none of the parties are going to do anything about it. eat my dick is literally government policy. So, checkmate.
You'd have unlimited funds for the
a
water
start,
companies.
for instance,
I mean,
the Scottish,
you know, you would have to face the issues that other countries face too.
The Scottish Parliament has no borrowing powers whatsoever. The reason we believe in independence is because we want governments to be able to make policies tailored towards Scotland instead of funneling millions into plans like Rwanda.
Right.
Carry on.
So,
True.
with that in mind, when the problem with nationalisation, or the problem that England faced when water was under state control, is that funding, capital always had to compete with other sectors such as the NHS, such as education.
I'm going to have to tear this woman a new one, because the reason why it had to compete with that is because they could not take on capital investment in the infrastructure. Right? They were barred from doing it by the Thatcher administration, specifically supposed to make sure that there was a reason to privatise them. They had to shoehorn the regulation in such a way that they were guaranteed to fail when new EU water quality legislation came in, requiring them to spend money on investment that they could not find because they could not get the private investment. They couldn't get private capital, borrowing capital, to be able to do so. If that had not happened, they never would have been privatised in the first place. But Thatcher did it specifically, and this woman knows this.
Drastically underfunded institution, which is why it had to be privatised. But I think people are right to be absolutely livid about this. You guys have it the worst, I think. If you here are under South West Water,
yes,
you are one of the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need me to come and tell you about this, of course, but of course you're angry about this. They have been fined, I think, something like 2 million for a period of 4 years when they were just contaminating.
The utility company declared, what's this? Hang on, £135 million in profit in 2022.
That's the
so
thing.
They were fined. They were fined $2 billion over 4 years for dumping ridiculous amounts of water, but yet they got 135 million. So I mean, it's less than 1% of anything.
As we said, the fines are completely pointless because they're all completely already underwritten in all their profit and loss projections.
Yeah,
like they know that they're going to get fined, and they already make allowances in their profit projections for how much they're going to get fined. It's built into their business model that they're going to get fined. It's not a deterrent in any single way, and this is as much of a deterrent as the Rwanda plan is. I wonder if they might change their tune if we start threatening to deport water CEOs to Rwanda.
I'm absolutely fine with that, and you know what? I would happily pay good money to build a massive trebuchet to get them there.
I always think about when there's a choice between nationalisation and privatisation. Privatisation in this context didn't work very well. But it's a bit like when you go to a doctor and for whatever reason you've ended up going to a really rubbish doctor. Maybe they weren't vetted very well, maybe they went to really rubbish universities, didn't really make the grades, whatever. You then decide, you know what? This doctor isn't working for me. I'm just going to go to the pharmacist down the road from now on. Now, the pharmacist might be kindly. The pharmacist might be someone...
Gosh, where's this going, dear? You've been wanting to get...
This is fucking nonsense. Even by the standards of dickheads who want to defend failed capitalism, this is absurd.
I mean, at the end of the day, the amount of like mental gymnastics that people from these right-wing think tanks have to do to try and justify their shitty ideology to people who hate them. They can't ever say what they believe outright because they know that everybody will reject it. So they have to couch it in whatever fucking flowery language they have. At least us on the far left, right? At least us, we literally state exactly what we believe. No filter. There you go. Believe it if you want to. Let's make our case. Whereas people on the far,
I was just arguing for the catapulting of corrupt CEOs.
Exactly.
I'm not hiding my power level here.
No, exactly. And whereas the right wing, they can constantly hide their power level. It's infuriating.
Yeah. Also, ironically, a very crap analogy she's using, yes.
Get to the point here.
The pharmacist is not qualified to do what the doctor needs to do, which is a complex operation. And
so you're just saying get better capitalists? Where they at?
Have more
where are they?
markets. Have 5 different pipelines going into every house, and you can choose the one that you want to deliver the water based upon their quality of service. Like that's
No, you
in
just
any way.
no,
an
you
efficient
just go
system.
to the water shop. You just go to the water shop and say, "I'll have a Thames water today, thank you."
State, which automatically means politicians, these people, with the greatest respect to my co-panelists, power is in the hands of these people, and they will again and again.
Okay, but you've already admitted that handing it to CEOs hasn't worked.
Yeah, should I trust my water supply with? Mary Black, who's shown multiple times that she genuinely cares about the people that she represents, or fucking Joe Bloggs, the private equity investor, who has more money than sense, and the incentive structure enables him to take money out of the industry for no gain for the tax. Fucking, who knows? It's anyone's guess.
Yeah, or as I like to call him, Trebuchet Traveller 1.
Again and again make a mess of things. Mark my word. You need better companies. You need better regulated companies, but it has to stay privatized.
Okay, let's hear
But
from.
it has to stay privatized. Why? You didn't make any argument for why it should stay privatized.
Basically, she just said don't trust politicians, because that's what libertarians will always do. The justification for all of this stuff is you can't trust the government. Government is bad. The politicians are bad. Look how bad the politicians are. I'm like, yeah, no. This is the one time when you can get better politicians, right? You can't get better CEOs. You can't get better private companies because they're all working under the same incentive structure. That's not the same with democracy. That's not the same with politicians. Sure, it has its issues, it has its problems. You can buy out politicians very easily, and there will always be manufactured consent around the kind of things that can get passed through as policy. But if there's enough public support for a policy that is against the wishes of the corporate class, it can get enacted if you have democratic support.
Isn't it a little bit naive to say that the government won't be able to employ people who are capable of a job? And hopefully that would be a Labour government. But if we look to what Scotland's done, they've got independence in terms of your water, so that's free, your prescriptions are free, and your education is free. Yep. And if I could move, I would.
Okay, we'd welcome you. Man with the pink check shirt there. Yes.
That's nice. Yeah.
Very nice.
We'd welcome you. It's beautiful. Imagine that. See, that's nationalism done like nicely. I'll come on board with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think the privatized for-profit model is a busted flush. And the main reason it doesn't work is because it's actually a series of monopolies. So people can literally help themselves, and they haven't been properly scrutinized. At least if it's in public ownership, ultimately the government's answerable. And if they don't get it right, we know how to get rid of them.
Okay, go on. Very briefly, Helen. Very briefly.
I just wanted to pick up on one point, and it was the lady up there who was talking about things being free. I mean, the problem is, ultimately, these things do have to be paid for, and it's to be paid for by
rich people.
By taxpayers, yeah, that's how taxes work. We all pool a bit of money based on the amount that we have, and then we spend that on infrastructure. It's actually rather a good system.
Yep.
It works quite well if you actually give it a chance.
By taxpayers, and the point that Dia made was absolutely right about the history and why privatisation, because something like water, the infrastructure, tends to lose out in the competition.
Okay, but you literally already admitted that we're working on Victorian fucking infrastructure. So where has the privatisation facilitated spending on infrastructure when we don't have that? I mean, it hasn't. Yeah, it hasn't. You're full of shit.
On a stamp, maybe.
Yes, true. Which you'll have to buy from the privatised Royal Mail. Brilliant.
For investment,
all right.
Privatisation has
That is
led
why
to
this
£160 billion.
neoliberal thing is such a fucking cult, because their only answer is just more neoliberalism. That's the only fucking answer they have to any situation. They can't even look at a situation as fucking embarrassing as the railways or the water, where even the majority of Tories are saying, actually, yeah, just privatise, nationalise it. Like, we don't like nationalising or whatever, but it's clearly the only thing that will make it work. And even then, they just go, no, we just need better capitalists. Where the fuck are they coming from? Where are they? They don't exist.
Exactly. Not because they're bad people. I mean, they do bad things, right? I'm sure they're morally compromised for sure, right? But not like intrinsically, like, you know, they weren't just like monsters from birth, whatever it was. It's because they are trapped. They are people who work within an incentive structure that leads this to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
And the only way to stop that is to change the incentive structure rather than changing the people.
Again, I will just say the word trebuchet. You can have positive incentives and negative incentives. I don't mind carrot and stick, bro. My maxim is talk softly and carry a big trebuchet.
Could you tell me why, now COVID is on the back burner, we still can't get to see a doctor when we want to?
Because the Tories have purposefully destroyed the National Health Service.
Woo!
Who'd have thought it? Underfunding everything will make the system break.
Shock horror.
Maybe we should privatise. Oh no, that was the plan the whole time.
Are you asking this from personal experience, Leslie?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, everyone is. Who the fuck? I mean, because these pricks probably go private, don't they? Everyone. You ring up the fucking the doctors, you will be lucky to get a fucking appointment within a fortnight. It's that bad.
So what happened with you?
Yeah, I collapsed and I was taken to hospital and I was treated extremely well, went through many departments. And
But how does that work in a nationalised industry? You got good service, free at the point of use. That's crazy. Imagine.
Got home, went to phone the doctor. That was 7 months ago, and I still haven't seen him.
Jesus Christ!
Spoken on the phone, but he hadn't seen, you know, the injuries that I had, or.
And is that because the doctor's saying he or she doesn't need to, or just can't give you the time?
I presume can't give me the time.
7 months, you say?
It's 7 months now.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Leslie. I am. Rosanna.
Leslie, I'm really sorry to hear that, and it totally breaks my heart. And I work on the NHS front line, so I've never stopped doing my shifts in A&E. And when I go and do my shifts, I hear the same stories echoed. And I hear people who've been unable to get the help.
Fucking hell, boy pagan, man. A similar story in my chat. I recently called my doctor. The first available appointment is in October.
Love it.
October. It is currently June or July, one of the two. I don't fucking know anymore.
Help and support that they need, and I meet patients. For example, an 80-year-old lady who was caring for her 3 young grandchildren. She'd had a lump that had been growing. She hadn't been able to get an appointment to see someone. And by the time I saw her in A&E, I knew that what we were looking at was inoperable cancer. This is not a singular event. This is...
Yeah, that's what was borne in mind. It's not just twisted ankles or, you know, a cough or something. Doctors are the first port of call. They will refer you to specialists for things like cancer, deadly diseases. If you can't get to see someone in 7 months, you could be dead in that time.
Yep.
Or it's too late.
In practice now, we have over 7 million people on NHS waiting lists, and we have a Conservative government that have failed our country. It is not okay that when I show up to an A&E shift and I'm doing a paediatric A&E shift, that there are children who've been in mental health crisis in the department for 3 days because there's nowhere to go. It is not okay that there is a death rate associated with people not being able to get an ambulance when they need one. And it is not okay that people are needlessly dying because they cannot get the help that they need. That has happened on this Conservative government watch. And Labour have a plan to grow the workforce. We will double the number of medical school places. We will recruit thousands and thousands of new nurses and midwives. And we will make sure that mental health gets the fair treatment it deserves, and it's no longer the Cinderella service of the NHS.
And
to hire all those
people like
doctors and
Leslie, and I
nurses,
expect she...
they're going to somehow just fucking magic them out of the ether.
Yes. We'll just get some doctors. You know, you plant the doctor seeds, and then the doctors grow out of the ground. That's how that works.
They're not going to come from overseas, no, of course not. And we're not going to. And they're going to. The ones who are going to come from the UK, they're going to be magically attracted to working in the health service for no reason whatsoever. We're not going to attract them at all by NSA. basic things like
We're
increasing
not going to
their pay.
attract. Yeah, we're not going to attract anyone by fucking from abroad because we can't even keep hold of the ones we have. They're all leaving for Canada and Australia because why the fuck wouldn't you? They'll pay you and actually, you know, give you some semblance of a fucking life. Whereas here, at best, you'll get paid subsistence wages and you might get stabbed up in A&E.
The workforce plan, which is many in the NHS are calling for, is going to take time, obviously.
Yeah, it will.
So in the next, I mean, you're hoping to be in government, what, next year or at the very latest the year after?
ASAP.
So what, in the meantime, should you be in government? Can people expect anything to improve, given how long it will take to get more GPs in the system, or will they just have to wait?
Well, we have got record waiting lists, and we have a Conservative government that didn't deliver on their manifesto pledge in 2010 to grow more GP. Well, we have a fully costed workforce plan, and I can tell you exactly what it is.
The point I'm making is that will just take time, obviously. Of course it will take time.
Naturally.
So in the meantime, if in the next year or two, at the very least, or the first couple of years, should Labour be in power, honestly, should people expect that actually not that much is going to change until these new GPs and all the rest of it, should this happen, get trained up? Or is there anything people can expect in the short term?
So that is
realistically.
That is an absolutely fair question. And I'm never, ever going to sit here and say to you that overnight, the moment we're in government, it's all going to be fixed. We have a plan. Of course, it takes time to grow a workforce. But we have a commitment to
exactly.
do
You've got to water the
doctor
plants.
And it will take time to train people. But we also have to really importantly value the staff that we've got. 6 million mental health sick days were taken in the NHS just last year alone. We go to work with one arm tied behind my back. We have to perform intimate examinations in cupboards and see our patients lying on floors. I'm sorry, but NHS staff and patients deserve better than that.
True.
So the question is, with COVID on the back burner, why can't I get to see a doctor when I want to?
Because
not enough money.
Well, COVID was the excuse in the first place. Like the reason that it was fucked before COVID, it's just at least everyone was like, okay, COVID's a thing. Maybe we can't get to see the doctor at the minute. It was never going to be okay afterward.
Back to the actual model that works, please. We've been tinkering around with PFIs and all of that shit for far too long. Bun it off.
You know, Rosina, in January, when you asked on Radio 4, you weren't quite sure whether you were supportive of Wes Treating's reform proposals. Have you made your mind up yet?
And which reform proposal are you talking about particularly? Are you talking about reforming GP contracts?
Yes. Yeah.
I wasn't unsure on any radio of what you're referring to.
Thank you, Pandana.
Thank you for giving me another opportunity to talk about our plan.
Because I'm here as a listener too. You need to convince me as a voter too.
So you don't know what she's referring to. That's what
I don't think you could be converted to being a Labour voter ever. You are the Brexit editor of the Daily Telegraph.
And former, director of one of the most right-wing think tanks in Tufton.
Yeah, you are. If you abandon the Tory party, then they literally get no votes. There's no one left for them.
You're saying?
I'm very confused by what she's saying because ultimately,
what do you mean?
We have a plan.
So you were asked on Radio 4 in January when Wes Treating came out saying, I don't understand why BMA stands in the way of us reforming the NHS in a way which means that we can provide better services.
We need to reform bits of the NHS in order to have a service that works.
And how is that going?
I'm sorry, but I don't see why it's relevant that you're referring to an interview I had in January that no one even knows about.
Oh, I do.
At a point when we're talking about the NHS.
I'm really interested to hear what the reform policies are for Labour, because we are at a junction.
Well, I'll very happily tell you again.
Okay.
This is a real stretch, even for a fucking Telegraph hack. You gave an interview 6 months ago about a situation that has completely changed. Okay, and what the fuck? Like, I hope you warmed up before that stretch because you are going to pop your back out, love. What the fuck?
True.
Well, we better let Rosanna off.
Go for it.
Okay. Very happy to. So first of all, in mental health, we will recruit 8,500 new mental health staff.
You're talking about GP contracts reform,
I'm talking about funding on all of these things where we think the funding is going to come from.
I can tell you exactly where the funding
Okay.
Okay, I can tell you exactly where the funding
in the nicest possible way. Don't take too long.
Pause, Kev. She's about to tell us exactly where the funding is going to come from.
If it rhymes with condom, then honestly, I'm going to scream.
it's either going to be that or it's going to be the private school exemptions. One of the two.
Okay.
Don't you dare, however, mention capital gains tax increases at all, though, because that's a line that the Labour right will not cross.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
So
friends
is it
in
going to
the
be
rented capitalism sector.
non-dom or private schools? Place your bets now. Banzai!
So in the mental health, for example, we will close the carried interest tax loophole, and we will levy VAT on private school fees, which will generate us 1.1 billion, which will pay for our mental health pledges. Our workforce plan will be funded by closing the non-dom tax loophole.
Right, and that's assuming all of those.
Both of them in.
Boom! That is a high tariff maneuver.
All bets win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the house gets fucked. Yeah, everyone wins.
After 13 years of Conservative government, do you feel that if one of your children urgently needed to go to hospital, and I hope they never do, that you'll be able to get that ambulance? Do you feel that if you were
Oh, she goes private, she'd be fine. Yeah, she didn't give a fuck. What would she care?
sick or someone you loved was ill, you'd be able to get that GP appointment? Does anyone in this audience feel that after
I would love to bring the audience in. So let's do that, Rosanna, because you're all sitting there very patient. I can hear a bit of grumbling because you're not getting a word in. So let's hear from you. Yes, the guy there in the short sleeve shirt, yeah.
I don't think that anyone's expecting Labour to have a magical fix to the problems that the Tories have spent sort of 13 years implementing. The Conservative minister that we have here has spent the entire show sort of being passive. She used the word monitoring 15, 20 times earlier.
When we were talking about water.
Exactly. But yeah, the sort of way that questions are answered by this government shows the way that they're just passive in everything they do. They just have sat and watched as the country sort of crumbled around them in the last few months.
I'm shocked and I'm really worried by that, Leslie. That is not how it should be.
Why are you shocked by that? You shouldn't be shocked by that. You're a government minister. You should know this.
A government minister literally in the health committee.
Yeah, you should know this. This shouldn't be a surprise to you in any way. The fact that it is either means you're lying or you are not fit to do your job. Either way, you should resign and never speak again. Go and live in a cave like a hermit.
And I care enormously about you and everyone else being
No, you
able
don't.
to get the healthcare
Couldn't
they
give
need.
less
The
of a
reason I'm
fuck.
even involved in politics is because I come from a family of doctors and nurses and wanted
Imagine.
the NHS to be better.
Yeah.
That's what got me
Imagine.
involved
So
in-
what's
Look at your mum and dad in the NHS and go, yeah, fuck your pay grades. Fuck you.
So you said, Leslie, about all the pandemic's over. One of the problems there is the pandemic had a huge impact on our health service because so much of normal healthcare stopped to look after people with COVID, or because people were very worried and weren't able to come and get the treatment or diagnosis they usually would because of the risk of catching COVID. So one thing we have is the backlogs of people waiting because they didn't get the care that they would normally have done because of the pandemic. And that is taking time to bring down. So that's one.
But in 25 years, you might get to see a doctor. That's a callback to the thing she said earlier, because she's an arsehole.
Yeah,
One of
it's
the
good.
reasons why
Get another
it's
plan. It
hard
might take
to-
25 years to fix theoretically under Conservative government.
True. But you've got to
Wait for all
privatise it.
wait
That's
for all
only
the poor
answer.
people to die.
True. Yeah.
You get the healthcare that you want at the moment. It still shouldn't be as you've experienced. The other thing is the growing need for healthcare that we have as a population, which is something that started increasing, was increasing before the pandemic and seems to have really accelerated since. And it's affecting many, many countries. It's affecting other parts of the UK as well, in Labour-run Wales, in SNP-run Scotland, and other countries also facing these challenges. Let me say two things about what the government is doing about this, working clearly with the NHS in England. Firstly, working really, really hard to reduce...
Did you hear that, guys? She's working really, really hard. You can't be mean
is.
to her. They're working really, really, really hard to make sure the NHS fails and gets privatised.
True. Also, just listening to her drone, I feel like I'm being waterboarded. Honestly, this is like Guantanamo Bay level.
She is literally the worst government minister they could get on.
Yeah. Look, just stop talking, please. Please, just go away.
Reduce those backlogs following COVID, reduce the number of people who who are waiting a long time and making some
I mean, the waiting
progress
list is growing, as you know. It's at a record high.
There is that. But what we have managed to do in England is we have brought down the number of people waiting more than 2 years, a really long time.
No, but overall it's grown because there are more people on the rest of the waiting list.
Step by step. First of all, the people waiting over 2 years, virtually eliminated. Now the people waiting over 18 months, virtually eliminated. Something Labour-run NHS in Wales has not managed to do. So next year we expect to bring down the waiting list overall. One of the things that's happening here is more people coming forward. So for instance, in cancer, around an extra 20% more people than usual coming forward for cancer checks.
Could you just stop getting cancer, please? It's inconvenient for our waiting time numbers if you could just not get cancer. Or just don't come forward and just die quietly in your house.
Yeah, have you tried raise VAT and kill all the poor?
Yeah.
This is a good thing.
Maybe we need to privatise the poor. It's the only answer.
Right thing to do, much greater awareness of cancer. It's helping us diagnose, it's helping us catch more cancers early than ever before. That is the right thing to do to improve outcomes, but it is putting that huge pressure. Also, as we work to recover the NHS, it doesn't need to, we're supporting the NHS to change with a world in which, for instance, a country in which more people are living with multiple health conditions. Around 1 in 4 people live with more than one health condition. So what that involves is more people being cared for out of hospital by joined-up teams across health and social care.
Not getting to see her GP at all, so...
I realise that, and so we need to fix that. And now, across the country, there are now 26,000 more people working in primary care. We need to make sure that comes and helps you, Leslie, as well.
So in Scotland...
That was fucking painful.
Nothing. So they have no plans. Literally no plans.
They have no plans. They have no... I mean, she has no charisma.
There's no hope.
There's no hope, and soon to be no NHS. So...
Yeah.
Awesome.
Where undoubtedly, yes, we have problems, we have also a much better story to tell because...
Well, you've got the BMA saying the situation with GPs is critical.
Yes,
inadequate workforce planning, chronic underinvestment. Yep. So all is not rosy in the garden.
Oh, absolutely not. No, there's always room for improvement. But again, I would just highlight the fact that it's still a better story than what Westminster can tell. But with the NHS being involved in Scotland...
How is it better,
I'll tell you.
Okay.
So with the NHS being devolved in Scotland...
I quite like the sass. She's got some spunk, so to speak.
True.
Although the purse strings aren't devolved, the power to implement the healthcare service is there. And with that one free hand, what we've been able to do, as was mentioned earlier on, we've been able to introduce free prescriptions, free personal and nursing care, and regardless of age. But where Scotland in particular is running into a problem is with social care. And part of that reason is something that nobody in Westminster wants to talk about, is Brexit. Because we cannot find the staff to fulfil all the duties that are required within the NHS and social care. And just to touch also on...
It's okay. We'll just take doctors from the magic doctor tree.
It's true. I mean, literally, the fact that, you know, it's interesting how no one's ever thought of coining the term magic doctor tree before, given that both parties seem to think they can magic it out of thin air. Because the magic money tree does exist. It's called the Bank of England, whereas the magic doctor tree does not exist without prompting.
The Doctor of England. What the fuck am I talking about? Sometimes I say something so stupid and I think, just stop it.
Hugh's point there. In the 8 years that I've been elected, I meet lots of experts and charities and organisations that live and breathe this stuff. And I find myself asking them, look, how many problems, particularly when it comes to mental health and just health in general, how many problems would be solved if people had more money in their pockets? And they weren't forced to either skip on meals or go for the cheap meal deal or go for the McDonald's because it's cheaper than actually getting a bit of fruit and veg. That's where in Scotland we've been able to not only tailor our NHS, but also work towards a wellbeing economy, because everything works in tandem. You've got to give people the powers and the money to be able to make healthy decisions. And that is the starting point for making Britain a healthier country.
Okay, let's say a little bit more.
Honestly based, I want to meet this person and hug them, assuming they're into, they might not like personal space issues like that, but you know, shake them by the hand.
It's just so good. Like, it's frustrating that she didn't come up with any hard facts, right? If there was like
Yeah,
a shorter
yeah.
waiting list in Scotland or whatever, I mean, I don't know whether there is or not, for example. But to be fair, when we both know already that this is a problem of lack of investment, the Scottish government have very little control over how much they can invest because they're always going to be financially constrained by the devolution agreements. But
Yep. Which is why, again, I don't want them to leave, but they really should.
yeah,
They really fucking should. Anyone who can escape the clutches of Westminster should do it.
quite
I'm
frankly, it's
all
true.
for the People's Republic of Birmingham. Let's fucking go.
Audience, we're almost out of time. Man there in the glasses, yeah.
I'm a paramedic who retired this month, and so I've worked through the pandemic and been involved in the NHS for many years. Interestingly, we've just been talking about the failure of privatisation in the water industry. Why are we not addressing the failure of privatisation?
Oh, let's go!
Not even Labour are looking at privatisation.
Let's
They
go!
want to increase privatisation.
Okay, I want to meet this dude and suck his dick.
Fucking legend. Let's what an absolute base legend. I mean,
Also,
and I'm
solid
glad.
beard,
I'm glad as well. I'm glad as well that he's skewering the Labour Party over it because they absolutely should be, right? West Streeting's NHS plan is utter dog shit. It is complete dog shit.
Yeah.
And they need to, we cannot elect West Streeting as health minister. It's political. It's economic suicide to do what he's trying to do with ripping up the GP's contracts and his desire to increase privatisation. He's absolute demon. He should not be left in control of the health service.
Yeah, absolute lizard.
Privatisation is failing the NHS, just
True.
like it's failed the water.
True.
And what aspect of particular is it that it's taking consultants away from work that they could be doing for the NHS? What
If
is
things
it?
are privatised, you have to spend money on lawyers, tendering, accountants. It's not about delivering a service, it's about making profits for the companies involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear from the man right at the front here.
Another
How on
applause
earth
for
do you
nationalisation, folks.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly want to fucking renationalise the NHS. Yeah.
Route for these positions that we need to fill when public sector pay is an absolute national scandal at the moment.
Yeah. Look at that. Higher wages for public workers gets a massive instant round of applause.
Yeah,
and the Labour Party got fuck all to do. Yeah.
Labour and Conservatives identical on public sector pay. Both of them want to go lower than the independent pay review bodies that both of them were already saying were the only reason why they couldn't pay any more. And now they want to pay less than the independent pay review bodies. It's pathetic. It's absolutely
Also,
pathetic.
It's interesting that when the MPs get their wage rise through an independent pay board, that can't be overruled. But when the doctors or the nurses, people that we actually like and need, get their pay overseen by an independent board, that can be overruled. Interesting juxtaposition, isn't it?
Mm. Also, I think I think Zero points out in chat. I think that even a public NHS would have to tender for some of these things that he's talking about they have to pay for. But the one thing they won't have to pay for is the shareholder dividends, right?
Yep.
The money that we are just paying on top of delivering the service to ensure that whoever's part of the stock portfolio of Serco gets paid extra money. That's wasted money on top of agency fees for agency nurses that we're having to pay for instead of just recruiting more nurses, which would be if we gave them like a 16% pay rise, we would be paying just as much as getting them through an agency. But of course, the Tory fucking pigs wouldn't have their snoots in the trough if we did that.
True.
We've got police officers, teachers, health.
Oh, so you had to ruin it with the coppers, didn't I? You had to bring them into it.
He looked confused, but he got the spirit.
Yeah, exactly. He's in the right ballpark, but we just need to red pill him on the coppers.
Yeah.
They're not being paid what they're due. They took us through the pandemic. And what are we doing to reward them? Yeah. Absolutely nothing.
Okay. And the man in the grey sweater there. Hang on, we'll just get a microphone to you. There you go.
So, Helen, you say that you got into politics to help people, and you've been part of a party that over the past 13 years has systematically broken down our NHS. So, to go back to a question you were asked earlier, how do you sleep at night?
Nice.
Look at her face. Look at her face.
Oh no, it's the Simpsons thing of look, if we can freeze point the moment his heart broke, and it's literally look at her. that man just snatched her soul.
I mean,
It's gone.
It's literally
She's-
true. I'm just
She's dead.
absolutely dead and buried. Fucking
True.
call the. But someone in my Alan in chat is saying call a taxi nami. You need to call a fucking mortician.
Exactly. Yeah, you need a fucking hearse. That's what you need.
Well, I think that, I mean, it's hard times for the NHS, as I said a moment ago.
Is it worth it? You just got absolutely destroyed on TV, national TV. I don't care how much you're getting paid as an MP or even with your weird second jobs. It's not worth it.
No,
having your soul absolutely melted right in front of you.
I mean, she might at this point she might as well do a 10-minute ukulele song about how sorry she is the NHS has been destroyed. Like,
fucking true.
Nothing is more embarrassing than what's happening to her right now. Nothing. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does help out the channel and the algorithm. And if you click the bell notification icon, it will let you know when I go live and when I upload videos. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my handle is @NoJusticeMTG, and that is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. If you want to support my channel in a more financial manner, you can do so by becoming a member for just 99p, by super chatting, or by supporting me on Patreon, with the link is in the description of this video. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next segment.